Group 7, and my name is George. This is Nathan, Juan, and Hassan, and we're here to present the five most important things in graphic content. I'm going to start off by in collecting information to generating your ideas, and first off, we're going to talk about determining what you know. If you have a presentation, most likely you would know a little bit about your audience and a little bit about the topic, and sometimes you probably don't know too much, but you will know slightly about them. And the first thing you probably want to go with is start with a strategy. Write down what you know about your audience. Uh, you can use the audience analysis questions from our chapter 1 from the book. That's a great technique to know about your audience. And you want to write down as much as you know about your audience because you're going to need this and kind of research your content and kind of link your content to your audience. Next thing you want to do is do a data dump. What that means is just write about what you know about the content, the topic. Do some research. Put down what you know about, what files you want to use, the images you want to use for that presentation. Literally everything about the data you're going to use for that presentation. Just put it down. You can have it on a flash drive. You can write down all the contents you know presently. A technique for doing the data dump is trying the mind map. What the mind map is if you have a paper, you can write in the middle of that paper the main overall topic. Put a circle on that and start drawing up branches off of that. This is something like clustering we learned in our writing class. And clustering is just like putting a big circle, writing the main idea points and drawing branches off of that and then subtopics and just doing like a mind map, just clustering of what you're going to put your presentation on. Next is doing research. Once you've determined what your strategy is, you know your audience, and you know what you know about your content, you want to go do research. Just like we talk about rehearsing about presentation, research is probably the number 2 on the board of the most important things you have to do about your presentation. You have to research about your content. You have to get credible sources. So you want to start off, some people do know how to research, but actually researching on the internet, it's a skill. One of the places you can go and find about researching, teaching you about researching is UC Berkeley. They have a whole a whole article about research. Researching on the internet, on Google, on Wikipedia, just researching, knowing how to use keywords to find what you're looking for. That's one of the skills in internet research. And you want to go beyond Google. There's a whole other place you can research your stuff from other than Google. There's government data websites, there's encyclopedia, there's this Investopedia that talks about the economy and more about economics. Also, when you're doing your research, you want to evaluate your sources. There's a lot of scholarly research of Google, but you still want to find about the website. Go to the about page of their website. Look at who created this website, this scholar report. Who's that person that wrote that article? So you really want to evaluate your sources before you use them. After you've gathered, jot down your strategy and also your content, and you've done your research, you want to take a pause and go back to the drawing table and use all this information you've generated to generate your own content. You don't want to come give a presentation about the exact same thing you found online. You actually want to generate your own content from what you have researched and what you know about the audience. And the way you can go about this is, first of all, linking the information to the audience. The topic you know, the content you've jotted down, you want to link it to the audience. You want to have a way to convey what you have to the audience in your own type of way, where they can understand it easily and effectively. Also, you can synthesize your ideas. This is just more of like creating a new idea, blending different ways that you know how to convey your topic and coming up with a new idea of conveying your topic. You could start off by doing something new nobody has ever done that's, more effective, that's going to get the audience attention. Next, you want to explore topics for stories. You can dig in your content and just look back at, experiences you have and see if you can pull out a story from your content. Use that as a storytelling for your presentation. That might be effective, it might not be effective, but you can kind of explore that area. Solution-based scenario is more of using a benefit statement, incorporating that into your problem-solving anecdote. And this is an example. Let's say you guys are the audience, and I'm presenting about a new construction that's going to help everybody. I want to incorporate how you guys are going to benefit from that construction, and also that construction is actually solving a problem. So that's how I incorporate a benefit statement, which you guys are going to benefit from that construction and actually talking about the main construction, which is actually solving a problem. Next up, we'll talk about focusing and ordering your information. Now that you've gathered all this content and you know about your audience, you want to focus and kind of like order your information before you start, making your slides for the presentation. And you want to try out focusing techniques other than, the one I mentioned earlier on, like clustering. You want to try it in a nutshell. That's kind of like a general, very common phrase, doing in a nutshell. You want to just look at all your topic and just like look at it in a nutshell. Find a way you can present this in a very simplistic, straightforward, and short, presentation where your audience can grab what you're talking about and not just rambling off in a long essay. You want to try the email technique. It's a very different technique whereby you just have an imaginary email. Act like you're just sending an email to somebody that's not going to be in the presentation. Try to write an email that it's more about your presentation, but the person's not there. Or you're trying to convey your thoughts, you're trying to convey your content to that person, and see if you can make out what you want and what you want that person to do. Next one is teaching your ideas. This is very opposite to the email technique. Teaching your ideas is more face-to-face, talking to someone, and so things you can do is get your colleague, get your friend, and have them stand in front of you and try to convey your thoughts, convey your topic to that person. And see at the end of it, if you can ask them questions and see if their thoughts change from the beginning, see if they actually grab what the objective of their presentation was. Also, you can try the elevator speech. Elevator ride basically take about 90 seconds. Just imagine yourself in the elevator with a decision maker. And with that 90 seconds, you want to see if you can actually convey a topic and actually get to the point and get the decision maker to say yes to what you're trying to convey. And this is it's more tied to the nutshell technique, because it's like you really want to put all that content in just one simple nutshell, convey it, and see if you can get the result and the response that you want. Circling back to research, and this is when you hit like a wall. Let's say you've gone through all these techniques and you've hit a wall, you still haven't really hit that wow effect in your presentation. You want to go back and do your research. It's never too much. You can there's a lot of contents online. You can get your ideas from. You want to go back, circle back, keep doing your research, and probably you might find something that really gives you a kick to give a good presentation. Finally, I'll talk about ordering the content, and this is more about organizing what you found online, organizing all this data you've researched, and kind of outline it. Outline is the first one actually. This is the most common one people use in organizing your content when you're like gathering stuff for presentation. Outline is more of like the bullet points. You want to take your main points and put them in bullet points and small bullet points. Arranging them and go off of that and drafting your presentation. Next one is an idea chart. With the idea chart is more of a pyramid. This is when you put your main topic in the top and build it down a pyramid and put the subtopics in the bottom. So you have the main topic in the top, then you start branching it out all the way to the bottom. Above all, you can actually come up with your own idea. You don't necessarily have to do either of this. You can actually have sticky notes, paste it on the wall like the detectives in the movie do. Actually, you can do that. You can have a recorder in your hand. Talk to yourself. Talk to the recorder. Go back and forth. Just talk anything you can think about it. Come back and replay that stuff to yourself. From that, you can go to the sticky note. From that, you can take it to the idea chart. You can actually blend all this through with your own and come up with a good technique to actually organizing what you want to use for your presentation. And from that, I'll pass it on to Nathan.
So when you gather all your ideas and know how to present them, you want to have an effective opening, right? So this is a summary on how you're going to open effectively to your audience, because you want to gain their attention. So first, you want to set the stage. What this means is you want to, create an opening sentence, which is the main thing, to connect with your audience and really tell them about your goals and what you plan on teaching them or presenting to them for that presentation. Secondly, you can use these opening moments to explain your position and your approach. So you can also implement some of your thesis of your presentation during the opening. second, grab their attention. Ways you can do that is you can ask a question. This gathers the audience and it makes them participate and it gets them involved within the presentation. Secondly, you can describe a vivid image, which George went over is making a story and getting the audience involved emotionally and they feel that they're attached to this presentation. And then you also have to explain why you're presenting, kind of what I went over before. And you can never go wrong with humor unless you are singling out people, you're leaving people out. You just want to use humor wisely and try not to force it. Make sure that humor lines up with your personality. And thirdly, on how to open, you always want to include a preview. What that means is during the preview, you want to explain the structure of your presentation. It's kind of like a table of contents or some sort of way to structure your presentation so the audience knows what they're going to expect and what they, I guess, have to prepare themselves for. And then also, a good thing to do, which most people don't do, is the preview actually make a image of the preview and show your audience the preview so that they can follow it visually as well and not just with their hearing. And so planning a well-organized body. So after your introduction, you want to plan an organized body. And there are two main presentation methods that were discussed in the chapter, and that was the tell presentation and the sell presentation. A tell presentation is basically your informative presentation. Its goal is to present to the audience while using facts and evidence. But that's not to say the sell presentation isn't. It's just more factual rather than persuasive. And that's what the sell presentation is about. It's using your persuasive skills to, I guess, gain the audience's, I guess, vote or gaining their agreement. And there are three methods of each presentation that was discussed in the chapter. And one's a topical method, which is identifying the problems and explaining how to solve them. Second was the time-based presentation, which is explaining in a timely manner on how the problems occur and how you can solve them. And then lastly was the contrast-based structure, which is you compare the differences between points to create a better argument. And then finally, moving from one section to the next, this is about transitions within your body. Something that's important is you want to use explicit transitions, like next or second, finally, things like that. And then you also want to take a look backward towards your presentation. This is to check whether you're in line with your presentation and to kind of offer a breaking point with your audience. And then also using the backward look and forward look transitions, which is kind of what I just discussed, is looking back and then looking back forward to create that separation and break between your presentation. And now I'm going to pass it on to Juan.
Okay, so today I really want to talk about how to prepare for the Q&A session for your presentation. So the first topic is when should you apply or when should you open questions? And two options as a presenter is, should I open it up during the presentation or after? And each one has its drawbacks, pros and cons. So if you plan to open the questions at the end, it gives you more control of the information and just scheduling in terms of minutes. But kind of the two major drawbacks to this is that people might feel confused if they can't ask questions in the moment, and also you might find yourself in a situation where people ask questions even though you haven't asked them, questions. And also, if you want to open the questions during the presentation, kind of the biggest pro is that allows the questioner, the person asking the question, instant clarification if they're confused about an idea. And also, it kind of helps boost listening for the audience in general. And also, a drawback from opening questions during is that it's kind of, because it's a presentation has a beginning and an end. So if you have it during the middle, you have to plan it accordingly to the questions. So you don't want to break that rule by just interrupting a speaker, because that's a major rule that you shouldn't, that I'll talk more about. And the next thing I really want to talk about is valuing questions from questioners. And this is pretty important because, someone's taking time out of their day to raise their hand, they're mustering up the courage, and everyone else is just sitting back, not even, bothering with a question. And you want to value this because that person is interested in your topic, and they're willing to take time out of their day to clarify a statement or ask a question. So you really want to value and respect that person and the time they're taking up. And last thing that I want to talk about in this section is practicing your responses. So obviously the most logical thing is you want to feel professional, you want to appear professional, you want to be professional, and you want to come off as you're prepared. So during the preparation process, you can have a buddy or a group member ask you some common questions that you might expect or unexpected questions. And also you can also alleviate the issue of people, they might comment about a negative thing about your presentation, that can give you more experience with that. Okay, the next major topic that I want to talk about is how to refine your listening skills in the Q&A section. So obviously you want to look the part and you also want to have the skills. So the biggest thing is maintaining a good posture, because that's probably the most important in terms of the Q&A session. And when someone's asking you a question, you want to be, face to face with that person. You want to be facing them. You don't want to be like face to back, something awkward. Also, try to avoid distracting gestures such as arm placements, having your arms crossed, because it doesn't feel professional, and it's a very big distraction for that person. And kind of my own personal advice is if you don't have notes or anything like that, I try to keep my hands behind my back because it appears more professional and it's just more formal, I guess. And second, the biggest thing besides posture is eye contact. So you want to look at the person eye to eye, and also you want to look at their whole face. That's kind of a weird way of saying it, but you just want to do that just because it helps with nonverbal cues, and it just gives you're giving that respect to that person, like, hey, I'm listening to you, etc. And the last thing that I really want to talk about that's related to this section is creating a listening environment. And there's some major factors to this. First is you want to be visible to your audience. So you don't want to hide behind, for instance, you have a podium during your presentation. You don't want to be behind the podium. You want to be to the side of it. Also, for instance, there might be a table. You don't want to be behind the table. You want to be visible to your audience. So you want to be in front of the table. So this is pretty much logic here. And also the lighting. The lighting is a big issue. So you want to have the room well lit. There's some studies out there, numerous, that lighting, activates the sleep cycle. So you don't want the lights like pitch dark black in the room. You want to have people listening and not sleeping during your presentation. The next topic I want to talk about is encouraging participation during the Q&A session. And one of the major concepts is opening up the questions and asking questions to the audience. You want to ask questions that require a short answer response, not a yes or no, just because it's pretty basic. You want to have short responses just because it creates more of a talking environment, I guess, instead of just yes, no, yes, no. And also, the biggest concept in this section is try not to interrupt people during the questioning. You want to give them time to think, and kind of a general rule of thumb is 10 to 15 seconds to collect their thoughts. And another big issue is try not to appear as you're rushing, the audience, because that can send off some nonverbal cues or signals to people saying, oh, this person's not interested in this, he just wants to get out of here. He's just here for the grade. Last, you want to utilize minimal encouragers. These are kind of natural signals, and they encourage a questioner and speaker. It's almost like kind of like a self-esteem booster, I guess, in a way. Because when that person's asking a question, they might feel a little bit timid or nervous. So natural movements such as nodding, shaking your head, smiling, it's encouraging them to speak, their idea, even though inside they don't feel too great about themselves or they're unsure of their question. And the last topic I really want to talk about is paraphrasing. Paraphrasing can be a technique, and kind of the technique it helps with is stalling. So in case like someone asks you a question and you're kind of unfamiliar with their question and you're unclear how to respond to it, so it can allow you to, I guess, kind of jog your memory by paraphrasing their question. And the second thing it helps is audience participation. So if you paraphrase our question, it can help with clarifying it. Maybe other people in the audience are not too familiar with what that person is asking. So in a way, it clarifies it for everyone else without them having to ask that question. And that's it for my section. I want to pass it over to Hima.
So I'm going to speak to you guys about how to respond effectively to questions. So effective responses help you accomplish your objective. They should be interesting and help keep your audience attentive. You want to stay on message, and when you're asked a question, you should think of it as an opportunity to get your message heard. So two methods to do this are to apply bridging, which connects your response to something that is part of your presentation's objective, and also flagging, which draws attention to your most salient point and it highlights an important message. So an example of this would be something like, here's the critical point before you answer someone's question during the Q&A section. You want to make your responses interesting. You want to use brief responses that are interesting, that use vivid words and creative sentences that help keep your audience attentive. You would also like to use well-structured responses. These will help the audience answer the questions and pay attention better. You would like to keep everyone involved as well, which a few of these methods are to paraphrase the hard-to-hear questions, which will help keep the audience paying attention and help them hear it again. You want to call on people on various parts of the room, as well as speak loudly and look around the room to keep everyone focused on you. You want to use stalling options for unknown questions. So a few methods to trying this out are to repeat or paraphrase the question. By doing this, the audience gets to hear the question again, and then it'll help them soak it in, and it'll make your response more clear to them as well on what you're answering. You want to also turn the question outward. By doing this, you ask the question to another audience member or the person who answered the question. That'll help keep your audience well involved within your presentation. Another method would be to discuss the question as a group. And this is the same thing as turning the question outward. It helps keep your audience involved, and everyone can get in their own opinion, and everyone feels involved. I know we always have presentations where we have to deal with maybe someone in the crowd who just keeps asking a question or rambles on or is just presenting their own idea without really having anything to do with the presentation. So I'm going to speak to you a little bit about how to handle hostile members. So first and most important rule of all to handle hostile members is to be polite. So this is easily the most important. Even to the rudest member in the audience, you should be polite, because by killing them with kindness, either you turn the rest of the audience with you and they're supporting you for like being very well composed when someone's just bashing you, or you'll just kill them with kindness and they'll just give up on being mean to you at a point. You also want to lessen the hostility by agreeing to disagree. By agreeing with someone that maybe your point might be a little bit flawed, you help calm down the situation by agreeing with them a bit. You also want to paraphrase the feeling. So if someone asks you a question, maybe you detect a bit of anger in their question. So maybe when you respond, you should show a little bit of anger and understand that you sympathize with their emotions as well. You would also like to stop repeat offenders tactfully. So maybe if someone keeps bashing you and you want to keep moving on with your presentation, a good way to do it is maybe raise your hand and say something like, I agree with your problem, but let me touch on this issue. We are going to run out of time, and let me move on by stating this. And so this helps you move on with the presentation without shunning your audience member who's asking the question. And you want to look elsewhere afterward. And this has to do with maybe troublesome audience as well, because if you look at the more supportive, friendly faces in your audience, it'll help keep from that one member being able to keep raising his hand and asking questions that are disrupting your presentation. So you should always look towards the supportive faces at the end of your presentation so you don't open up to any more conflict. I'd like to thank you guys for paying attention to our presentation, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
For the questions and the please, dash and dash are two of the 4 ways you can use to generate your own content. Number 2 for 3 ways mentioned you can appear as a good listener. Number 3, dash draws attention to your most salient point. Number 4, what does the term paraphrasing mean? Very easy. Number 5,